How do you find ways to make yourself more competitive so that these colleges will take notice and hopefully be able to select you despite a lot of other, equally qualified applicants? So what I would like to do is take a look at some of the factors that these schools look at, and I will be using the NACAC Selection Factors survey. So in most years, the NACAC, which is the National Association for College Admissions Counselors, which is the governing body of all the different college admissions counselors or admissions officers out there, and also high school guidance counselors. And they do a survey in most years when they do the NACAC seminar, and they use this to try to figure out, like, what are the most important factors that colleges are taking a look at. So no surprise here, the most important factors are going to be the academic ones, as you can see here. So it's your grades, your total high school grades overall, and the strength of your curriculum, all sort of kind of combined together, right? So I wouldn't say that the actual pure GPA is any more important than, let's say, the strength of the curriculum. They're all sort of factored in contextually and holistically, okay? Next, they'll also be taking a look now at things like your positive character attributes, which I lumped here with the essay or the writing sample, because this is one of the most visible ways that they use to evaluate, your character. Like, who are you as a person? What do you value? What are your strengths? And that's definitely one of the things that colleges are taking heed of, more so than in previous years, okay? Beyond that, of course, recommendation letters are also being evaluated at a very high level. So many people know about the teacher recommendation. One of the less sort of known factors is that your high school guidance counselor also needs to write a recommendation letter for you. And so one of the key things I'll be talking about in today's seminar is, how do you build those relationships? How do you let these counselors and these teachers know more about you so that they can write recommendations that make you stand out relative to the other people that they're writing recommendation letters for? One of the key things that I will tell students is that it's not always best to pick a teacher who necessarily has a good reputation of writing very glowing, flowery recommendations, because if they do it for everybody, then how are you going to stand out, right? Sometimes it's best to actually pick a good teacher who is a little bit more sparing in terms of who they write good rec letters for. And hopefully you would be one of the people that they'd write a strong rec letter for. So, I'll give you some tips in terms of how to weigh in terms of evaluating which teachers eventually would be the best, most suitable ones to write you the recommendations. We'll also talk about, of course, your extracurricular activities. What are some things that will make you stand out, be more competitive in the eyes of many colleges? And last but not least, admissions testing, things like the SAT or ACT. I don't know if you've been paying attention to some of the articles recently, but there have been some announcements, especially by the Ivies, where many of the Ivies are now bringing back the SAT requirement, of course, including the ACT as well. So that's definitely something that's a little bit of a game changer in terms of students now having to pay heed to that and then having to go ahead and, plan and prepare for that. So if you're a rising senior and you haven't really done much in terms of testing, you definitely need to account for that, hopefully this summer, and hopefully try to take one of the earlier tests in the school year next year, maybe as early as August, September, or October, so that you have a competitive score, just so you don't end up shut out of having to apply to schools that do end up requiring it, because it's only really going to be a matter of time before most schools again start requiring the SAT or ACT. For many years the SAT was considered optional because of COVID, but I think now that there's not really much sense of rationale for why students can't take the SAT or ACT anymore, many colleges are feeling like, hey, it's a useful tool. We could use this to help us evaluate students much more so and determine who would be qualified to attend our school.